All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Moon for scottmoonwriter.com. I'm going to start that over because I'm not sure if it just went live or not. It's kind of messed up. I hit the start broadcast and maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. So, good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Moon for scottmoonwriter.com. I'd like to talk about my books today, period. So, oh, God, that was horrible. You can tell I've been doing a lot of this. When you voice dictate, you have to put in the punctuation. So it's like the intro would read, "Hello!" Exclamation point. I'm Scott Moon Writer. Period. Whatever. Blah blah blah. So that's hilarious. So what I'm doing is I'm going to talk a little bit about my book because it's kind of an interesting story. I think so, and how these books got written and what they mean to me. Also, I'm listening to Extraction Point by Hans Zimmer for the Call of Duty game. It's part of my writing soundtrack, but I have that in my headphones. I'm all inspired and pumped up. You of course can't hear it because if I put that music on here, it'd most likely be some sort of copyright violation. But it's really awesome. I'm just going to say that. So coffee, one sec. So my primary science fiction trilogy I started writing years ago. The first book is Enemy of Man. Okay. And so I wrote that as a screenplay. I've been reading about writing screenplays, and I wrote most of it at a part time. You can really see that camera shake. It's crazy. Um, and I wrote it in about 2 weeks, and it was in Bright. Later, when I finally got more serious, more knowledgeable about self-publishing, my wife said, "Your story title sucks." Period. Now she's not a reader of science fiction, so maybe Warm Bright might have um, been a good idea. My soundtrack just changed to Pirates of the Caribbean. That's pretty awesome. All good writing music. So anyway, but Warm Bright, if you look at that book, you'd be like, what is that book about? Maybe it sounds like science fiction. I don't know. I came up with Enemy of Man as a title. That was after I had done a surprisingly painful rewrite of the screenplay because writing a screenplay is kind of cool. I bought a couple of books on it, and it's mostly dialogue, a little bit of screen setting, phrasing stuff, but mostly it's dialogue and action beats, and it goes really fast. But it's also written in first person present tense, and so changing that to a third person POV and have multiple characters speaking was a challenge. It made it longer, and but it was great. I loved it. I wrote a lot slower then because I overthought everything, just over every turn of phrase and whatnot. I got it done. I had it edited professionally, and then later I had it edited professionally a second time. And I have a new editor that I've come into contact with who may give me a further edit at some point if I get through all these other projects. So anyway, Enemy of Man. What is Enemy of Man? The premise is the main character, Kin Roland. I know people probably see the title and think it's a misspelling like King, but it's Kin, Kin, was an elite planetary assault trooper in the Earth Fleet forces, and they had run into some creatures called the Reapers throughout the galaxy, or these murderous alien face-eating, soul-sucking monsters that everybody was scared of. So they sent their fleet to wipe out the Reapers on the planet called Hell's Breach. Ken Roland was given the task of basically nuking them, not from orbit because that's too easy. His job was a lot harder, and that didn't exactly go well. He came crosswise with his commanders and his fleet and everybody, and he became kind of the villain of the story somehow. Set up to be a hero and to do this awesome mission. He left it as basically being sentenced to death. This story starts, he's on a planet because he changed his identity, went into hiding, wound up with a bunch of colonists / explorers on this planet at the end of a wormhole, crash landed. Everything is bad. So on this planet, and there's several reasons why. The 3 books go into why it's such a harsh planet and some of the things that have been done by this other race that are from a place called the Roré, and they're called wingers mostly by the humans because they got wings and they're pretty cool. So this little lost planet doing his thing, living rough, and Earthfleet shows up quite by accident because they just had their ass kicked by some new human-like aliens that slammed them through this wormhole. And unbeknownst to them, not knowing where the wormhole went, it opens actually into the atmosphere of this planet. And they come smack onto Ken Roland's little village or colony he's trying to keep going. Right behind them comes a Reaper. And this is a particularly cruel and devious Reaper named Drun Zeeble. And he's after Ken Roland, along with several other Reapers who are understandably out to get the guy who basically annihilated their planet. So the rub is that he destroyed their planet, but not quite good enough for Earthfleet standards. So basically everybody wants to take Ken Roland out, and he's here. Trying to book one. Enemy of Man. It's available in ebook, paperback, and audiobook. I think I put some links in the YouTube thing, or you can just look them up if you want. Look up Scott Moon on Amazon. I will be taking these books wide, so they'll be available on Nook, Kobo, iTunes, or iBooks, and things like that in the fairly near future. If you like to read on those platforms with Nook and iTunes and Kobo, I really would appreciate hard to get any traction with as a writer. So I need some reviews. I need people to buy them, and I'd be forever grateful. Right. So I appreciate it, but that's up to you. I hope you read them in any format. The second book is, the other thing I did is the Wormbright book had a cover I made on like paint and with the not Excel spreadsheet, with the PowerPoint. So that was pretty mediocre, but I couldn't believe how awesome it was. I mean, it really fits the story well. So that's Enemy of Man. Book 2 is Son of Orlan. So what makes Son of Orlan a book that my fans that have read it really like is Sergeant Orlan, which is Ken Roland's rival. Now, I don't go into when, but I do cover a few things here and there, and I would like to write the Assault on Hell's Breach. So if you have thoughts on prequels, throw it in the chat, put it on my Facebook page or something, because I think it'd be a great fun story to write. Some people don't like prequels. I think it could be really awesome. So anyway, so Sergeant Orlan and Ken Roland. Orlan is somebody who works for Ken Roland in his unit, but is kind of a bastard. He's a kind of a Sandor Clegane type of character, which is interesting because I hadn't seen or read Game of Thrones at the time I wrote this. But he's just a big, nasty brute, but also kind of an artist at heart. And he's a horrible human being, but he's also a total badass on the battlefield, and he does a lot of interesting things. And you'll learn in book 2 that he had a son with a shape-shifting prostitute on this place called the Iron Box, which is kind of a slum city / almost prison world space station dumping ground for humanity. And his son was left there, and he finally goes back and he rescues him from these gangsters, which I go into more detail with a short story called Sergeant Orlan, Hero of Man, that covers his actual rescue in more detail of his son from these gangsters. And it's really violent, and that's one thing you have to know about my science fiction is I didn't realize before I started writing this that even though people swear a lot in the military, and in my job and in life in general, profanity is no stranger to me, but that in science fiction, cleaner usually sells more books. I don't know why, but that's what I've been told. But either way, so it's pretty raw and pretty brutal. So that's Son of Orlan. So Orlan's son becomes a crucial part in the plot resolution of book 2. So in book 2, you have Ken Roland, Earthfleet, and the Reapers having their showdowns and chases through the wilderness. You also have the Imperials, which are the human-like invaders they've come in contact with. That there's a huge backstory as to why. Basically, these are humans that were cast across the universe by a special entity, which you'll know more about if you read the books. And they've spent 10,000 years working their way back. So they're almost not really human anymore. They're really pissed off. They're very militant, and they want to wipe everybody out. and they have some secrets. So kind of a race um, that are basically almost well, you have to read it. They're like nuclear salamanders kind of, and they're a problem for everybody. Um, and it all comes to head towards the end of this book. It's lots of big battles, lots of individual squad tactic type scenes, and my characters. My favorite characters, of course, Kin Roland. There's Clavender, who's the winger, kind of sorceress type character, and then Orlon and several other people. Laura Keene is the governor of the village there on the lost colony, and she's kind of cool stuff. I love it. You really need to check that out. I mean, and I'm not just saying that because I like it. It's good. It's a good book. I wouldn't be making this video if I didn't really think you would enjoy it. So um, that's Son of Orlon. That's book 2. It's available in ebook, paperback, and audiobook. The audiobook is harder to find through Amazon. I don't know why. It's just kind of wonky, but you have to drop down, click the audiobooks button, and it'll show you all my audiobooks. So, and those 2 books were narrated by Reese Allen Morse, who does a great job. He's very talented with his character voices, especially. And then I had a new narrator for book 3 because Reese was really busy. This is Weapons of Earth, and this narrator did some of it is just frankly disturbing. Some of his monster voices. So that's Weapons of Earth, and Weapons of Earth is the final book in this trilogy. It brings the storyline to a conclusion that I think is satisfactory. I know some people hate the constant cliffhangers. I like all my books to be as complete as possible, but still have some in series. That's why I like to read, and that's why I hope people enjoy it. But so this one really brings a lot of things together. It takes the entire cast and crew back to Hell's Breach, where they run into some of their squad, including Dog Ralston, and a few other characters that are pretty loved, right? And they're so much fun. And they're just, they've been on Hell's Breach for like 10 years, living in this nuclear wasteland with Reapers hunting them all the time, basically sheltering in a lost kind of underground prison because, spoiler alert, kind of, Hell's Breach was supposed to have been wiped out, but certain entities use it to dump like political refugees and stuff onto this planet and whatnot. So there's some new Reapers. There's some new other characters there you run into, and it's pretty intense. So I hope you like that. If you enjoy these, please leave me a review. Reviews mean so much to writers. Without them, it's a very competitive. It's not competitive because you can buy my book and you can buy all these other people's books, and we all. It's not like it's not like selling Lamborghinis where if you buy one Lamborghini, you can't buy a second one because they're too expensive. You can buy all the books. But what I mean is there's lots of books out there, and I know your time is valuable. So if you spend the time to read it, I appreciate it. Be trying to decide which book to read, which book to spend the next couple of weeks reading through, and your reviews help them make a good decision. So if you like it, leave a positive review. If you don't like it, that'll make me sad, but do what you got to do. Leave a bad review if you want, or don't leave any review. But I obviously would like all good reviews, but I really just want some feedback, and I appreciate your time very much. So that's my morning video today. I'll put it up on YouTube, and maybe I'll link it on one of my sites. I hope you like it. I hope that was informative. If you have questions about this book series or anything else I have, you can send me an email to scottmoonwriter@gmail.com. And please be patient because I'm terrible about answering them quickly, but I will. And or get on my Facebook page, go to the Scott Moon Writer group on Facebook, and or my Scott Moon Writer page, and leave me a message, and we'll chat. So take care. God bless. Be safe.